Look how cute this little canvas is. Ah, I love it. And I put magnets on the back so it can stick to things. Stay tuned and I will show you how I did this painting and give you some tips on how you can create your own miniature paintings in acrylics. Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artists at Play, and today I'm going to be talking about some tips and tricks for painting on a miniature canvas. This canvas is only about 4 inches by 4 inches. I got this at AC Moore, but I believe that they have some available on Amazon as well. I will link the canvases and other supplies in the description below so that you can find them more easily. So I'm starting off by sketching out my flower on the canvas. I am looking at the relationship between the different shapes of the petals and the negative and positive shapes to try and get that on there in an accurate way. I am using a reference photo that I took in my friend's yard, so that always helps. So the reason why I'm sketching directly on the canvas this time is because I am working in acrylic, and I know that if I have any mistakes, I can just paint over it. But if I were working in any other medium, such as colored pencil, I would probably sketch out my sketch on a different separate piece of paper first, and get that all worked out, and then transfer it to my working surface after, so I don't have to worry about damaging my surface. So on to different tricks for working in a small format. The first thing that you want to consider when you are painting a miniature painting is, of course, your brushes. If you're working on a small surface, you want to use small brushes, so I recommend using the smallest brushes you have. My favorite brushes to use are very thin round brushes, liner brushes or rigger brushes, depending on what you call it, and small filbert brushes, because I find rounder brushes such as round and filbert brushes are easier to blend things out with, so you don't have any hard edges. The next thing that you should consider when working on a small surface is the type of paint that you're using. I like to use soft body acrylics when I am working in acrylics and I'm working small. There are multiple reasons why I like to use soft body acrylics, but the main reasons are that they're easier to get fine detail because they're thinner. So they're less bulky than heavy body acrylics, and it makes it so much easier to be able to thin it down and get those really small details because the paint itself is not taking up a lot of space. You don't have to, I don't know how to explain it. It's just less bulky in general. And a tip that I have to getting even finer detail is to thin it just slightly with water till you get like an inky consistency, and it'll make it so much easier with a liner brush to have that just glide right across the canvas. And that is something that you can do even if all you have is heavy body acrylics. If all you have is heavy body acrylic, I do recommend thinning them down because it'll be much easier to get fine detail. So the next thing that you really want to think about when you are working on a miniature canvas, of course, is your subject matter. When you first start out painting small, I would recommend using a reference photo that is a close-up of something or a macro of something, because it's going to be so much easier to get those details in than if you were going to do some vast subject matter like a landscape that has a lot of trees or anything like that, because anything that has really tiny details is going to be that much harder to get into a tiny canvas. So that's why I chose this subject matter, because it's a close-up of a flower. If you were painting an animal, I would recommend just breaking it down into a part of the animal, maybe the eye or maybe some other defining feature of the animal, rather than trying to fit the whole animal in such a small space. And then one of the benefits to painting small is that you can do other things with the painting after. For instance, I put magnets on the back of this, and so you can use it as a magnet. Or you can actually put a hanger on it and have it be an ornament, or just hang it on the wall like you would a regular painting. The fun thing about using small surfaces, or I should say a beneficial thing to using small surfaces, is they don't take as long to paint. So if you're somebody who is struggling with artist block, or you don't really want to use up a big canvas because you're not quite sure about your subject matter, or there's numerous reasons, but this is a great way to practice, and this is a great way to get creative when you have a short amount of time. Sometimes I get really busy with work and other things going on, and I don't have time to do a huge painting, but I really want to get creative, and that's one of the reasons why I did this. I've been pretty busy lately, but I have really had the urge to create, so I figured, you know what? I have a little bit of time. This took me maybe an hour and a half at the most to do. I did it all in one sitting, and it really helped me scratch that creative itch, so to speak. Something else that is really beneficial to working in miniature is learning how to do the fine details. And this is a skill that will translate over to your other artwork as well. When you have to work small, it is a challenge to try and get those fine details in. So it'll give you great practice with working with liner brushes and just smaller details in general. It also gives you good practice for working out composition, and it gives you a little bit of freedom because you don't feel like you're wasting as many supplies if you're working small. These canvases don't cost a lot, and you obviously don't use as much paint if you're working small. So it gives you that little bit of freedom to just play around and get used to materials. It also gives you the benefit of learning how to blend acrylics. And of course you can do miniatures in oil as well, but I know that this is beneficial for acrylics because a lot of artists struggle with blending in acrylics because they dry so fast. On a smaller surface, you have less surface space to cover, so you have less blending that you have to do. So it gives you just a little bit of practice and a taste of how to blend those acrylics before they dry, because they're less likely to dry before you get the chance to get to it. So these are things that I find beneficial to working in acrylics on a miniature surface. Also, I mean, look how fun this is. It's a little tiny flower on a little tiny canvas. And you can sell these at trade shows and art shows and craft fairs and things like that. And like I said, they can have dual purpose because you can make them into something else. And I think that one thing that you really need to just consider when you're doing this is just make sure that you are looking at your reference photo just like anything else, and you're looking at those positive and negative shapes, because it's not going to be such a blown up version of your artwork. So you kind of really have to shrink down your reference, and that can be a challenge at times, but at the same time, I think it's really beneficial because it'll teach you to look for those negative shapes in other artworks as well. And here I am, I'm just painting the edges. I like to paint my edges to match the rest. Some of them I had to, some of the details on the edges I had to make up because they weren't actually in my reference photo, but it ended up coming together really well. And one other tip that I have for signing these, I actually used a Pitt pen to sign them, which is a permanent pen. You don't want to use Sharpies because Sharpies will fade out over time, but use something like a pigment pen or a Faber-Castell Pitt pen if you're going to sign. I had a really difficult time trying to sign in paint, so I ended up using a permanent pen because I wanted to sign it as small as possible so that it didn't take away from the painting and it just blended in. So that's another tip that I have. Use a fine liner to sign or a fine lined paint pen. And you can actually use paint pens on these as well to help define some detail if you're struggling with your brush strokes. So here is the final piece. Look how little it looks next to the tubes. I love it. Do you like painting miniature? If so, let me know what some of your favorite techniques are to paint miniature, or even some of your favorite subjects in the comments below. I hope that this has helped you, and thank you for watching. Bye! Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit subscribe. Also, if you're interested in seeing more of my artwork, I'm on social media, so check out the links in the description below.